Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome to this first episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians podcast. And if you know me from any previous work, you probably have been listening to my podcast of Complaint Free Life. And I feel like after having gone through a lot of coaching, coaching my humanitarian um, fellows, I have decided to shift the focus of this podcasting to be focusing solely on giving tools to my amazing humanitarians to transition in the way they want to and living the life they want to. So that's why this will be the first episode that's going out, and it will be available in the video and audio format. So, whichever the one that you want to listen to. And of course, we will make it available through all the podcast platforms as well and in social media for video format. So, if you're new to my work and you don't really know me, my name is Isela. I'm a life coach and formerly a humanitarian who worked in the humanitarian world for 10 years, and I have decided to resign from my work after having worked for 10 years during the pandemic to pursue the passion that I have developed, helping others achieve or live the life they want to, whichever the way they want to do that, whether within the humanitarian setting or outside of it. So that's why these tools, every episode will be a rich but also very concise and simplified version of a tool that I will be introducing that will help you work mostly on your mindset. But I will be also introducing some strategies for you to try it out. And I really highly recommend for you to use and apply everything or anything that you think applies to your situation. And of course, come over to get coaching from me in the individual setting or in a group setting. So all the information about that you can find on my website, aselurmanova.com. Okay, so the first episode that I really wanted to dedicate to the basics of transitioning, and I would be talking about what is it transitioning that I mean, and I propose a very simple three-step process that you can go through on your own. I would like to invite you to go through them with me as well so I can help you more dial down to making decisions and start working on them as we are in the first week of 2023. Right? So it's a perfect timing for you to start working on them. And the great part is that you don't have to leave the humanitarian world if you don't want to. You can also decide to enter a humanitarian world for those of you who haven't really started the career in the humanitarian work, right? So that's why it's a perfect timing for you to work on the mindset first before taking any actions. So transitioning is actually going from A to B, right? This is how we understand it. And the way that I would love for you to consider transitioning in this setting, in this context, is really shifting the mindset from one particular aspect to another. So most of the transitioning that I will be talking about will be in the mind, in the mindset, in the mentality, in the self-concept before we make any changes. Because otherwise, oftentimes I see people making changes from a scarcity, from not really trusting ourselves, from not really wanting things but doing it anyway, from sabotaging place, right? From fear place, instead of making the decisions, making the actions, and making changes out of really trusting ourselves, out of really the self concept of this is what I want, this is how I want to, and this is how I'm going to do this. And this is really the podcast is all about, is to help you get to that place where you can transition from whatever the situation where you are now, where you're believing that you can't do ABC, you can't really live ABC, to I I can do anything I want to. I'm really in charge. I take the responsibility and I will make it work and get you to that mindset. right? So that's why transitioning here, the way that I will be talking is mostly focusing on how to transition from a particular mindset to another mindset that we want, from particular emotional state to another emotional state that we want, before taking any actions, changing things, and resigning or entering, or we're moving back home before we do any of those things. So now that we have clarified the transitioning part, I really want you to think of how to transition in this ABC way. And I will explain to you what I mean by that. And the scheme behind is simply the same way as you use the Google Maps, right? So the Google Maps has also an ABC system, and A is where you are now, B is where you want to go, and C explains how to get there. And the same way, I would love for you to approach transitioning in your own mind using this ABC system that I'm proposing. So the first is A, is the situation where you are now, and have a look at it. And I would love to propose to you that you look at it mostly on emotions, because emotions are a great way to tell us what our situation is, how our lives are, wherever we are currently, right? And emotions always also indicate what's happening in the conscious mind, in the subconscious mind. So that's why it's a perfect place to start. And also, emotions are supposed to be indicators of whether we're satisfied with our life, where with our lives, whether we're fulfilled with our lives or not so much. So that's why let's start looking at where we are, and specifically looking at what are the things we're not wanting. Because if we wanted, or if we were living the life that we really truly want and we truly feel fulfillment, then we wouldn't be even considering transitioning, because we would be feeling like we're there, we're supposed to, we have arrived, we are really doing the impact we're wanting, right? Excuse me. So that's why the reason why we consider transitioning, why we consider changes, why we consider something else is because there are certain things that we're not really wanting. And that's why it's important to look at emotions of what are the things that we're not wanting. So, for instance, maybe you're not wanting stress all the time. Maybe you're not wanting the disbelief, meaning that you don't really believe in what you're doing or how you're making the impact the way that you used to before, right? So maybe you're feeling overwhelmed most of the time. Maybe you're feeling like you're surviving the whole time. Maybe are you feeling that you're not really free to be doing what you're wanting, right? So these are things maybe you are not wanting. So list them all out and have a look at them. And if you really want to dive into that more, I would love for you to propose to look at why are you feeling those, right? So that's an amazing question that we can always ask ourselves is, why are you feeling it? And you will always have the reason why. And it's always great to be very clear as to why that is. Now, notice that whenever we're saying why, our brains will often want to say things like, because of this person, because of my boss, because of my colleague, because of that annoying colleague who always rebels in meetings and is not constructive. Whatever the thing is, we always like our brains has a tendency to say it's because of someone else. But the problem is that as long as we keep believing that our emotional state depends on them, we will always be in that situation of feeling powerless. So that's why I really want you to get constrained on, if it wasn't for those people, how could I be in charge of my emotions? Right? So you can start looking at that, and we will look at that in this C section about more how. But for now, it's even just enough for you to think about why are you feeling those emotions. So then the next step is B, right? So we have looked at the A of what feelings we're having and what feelings we're not wanting to have, right? So now B is the destination little bit. And when I say destination, don't freak out as to if you don't have visions, or if you don't have like long-term goals, or if you don't have all the things that you are supposed to have but you don't, right? So we oftentimes beat up ourselves for no reason. So that's why B is simply, what is it that you're really wanting? And even really, if the word really makes you stuck, don't even use that. Just get very simple to ask yourself, what is it that you're wanting? And some of the answers already lie in the A section, right? Where you already notice what is it that you're not wanting, which also suggests that these are the things you're wanting. So maybe you're wanting to feel free, when you're wanting to feel less overwhelmed or not overwhelmed at all. Maybe you don't want to have stress continuously. Maybe you want to feel more in charge. Maybe you don't want to be feeling like always adjusting to other situations and keep reacting to things. Maybe you want to be in charge and feeling powerful instead of feeling powerless, right? So these are the things you're wanting. And that's amazing that we just get a more clarity on what is it that we're wanting. Maybe we want to have more time for ourselves. Maybe we want to have more time for our loved ones. Or maybe we want to start a family that we've been craving for. Or maybe we want to start dating. Or maybe we want to go back to where we want to. Or we want to choose a third country to go to and live. Or maybe we want to do something totally different, or we just want to make our impact in a different way than we imagined we would do in life. So all the things of what we're wanting could be another list. Now that we have two lists, then we go to the C section where we look at how are we going to make that B happen, or how are we going to get to B. Now, of course, before we get into that details of how we do that and then plan out and all the things, I really want you to take time to look at the obstacles or all the reasons why your brain will say it won't work. And that's okay, because our brains don't really tend to like changes. So that's why it's important that for us to look at what are the obstacles that we believe will be in the way of us getting from A to B, and get very creative and get all the things out. Don't shy, or don't think like I shouldn't be feeling this, or I shouldn't be saying this, or this shouldn't be a problem, but it is, and all the things. Don't do any of that. Just list all of them out. Maybe you will be having obstacle of you can't, you don't believe that you can have the same level of financial security if you leave. Maybe you believe that you won't be able to find other jobs that are similar. Or maybe you will believe that even if you go back to your home country or to a third country, then you will not be having the same opportunities that you want. Or maybe you don't really believe that you can have the family and the work life and make both of them successful, right? So write all of them down. Now we have a third list, if you will. And then once we have the third list, it's so important that you start looking at how are you going to solve them? And whenever we're solving anything, we tend to solve things from our current state, where we have a lot of fears, we have a lot of data, but only from the past, and we believe we can't really do that because we have never done this before. It's a time too short, or there are too many insecurities, market, and all the things, and that's usually what our ordinary brain wants us to just not make any changes and not move, and that's okay. But I really want you to get curious to access your extraordinary brain, the brain that allows you to look at the long term, the brain that allows you to look at what is it that you're really wanting in the long run, or the extraordinary brain that says, if I really trusted myself, if I really believed in myself, if I really believed in all the things that I have created so far, that I have done it. If I really believed in my power, in my powerful brain, powerful heart and capabilities, how would I really solve these things? How would I really solve each of these? right? And then get curious about that. And this is all in the mind. Don't forget, this is all in the mind before we even making any changes outside of us, before we even making a decision. I really want you to spend more time looking at how would you do it from a very empowered, powerful place rather than from the scared and it's not going to work and worst scenario seeking brain. Because notice that we can always choose one or the other. And what's interesting also is that if we keep choosing the worst case scenario seeking ordinary brain of ours, then we'll probably never make a change and we'll keep wondering what would have happened, or we keep wondering how. But also what tends to happen is that then we're also afraid of not really losing our current job and not really being who we really are in our current job, and therefore we really need to start learning how to befriend the fear, how to understand our emotions, right? This is all of the things that I'm talking about that will all come in the next episodes of the tools. But I really want you to give you the tool of a structured way of approaching it and really focusing on the emotions. And then once you are in the C section and you start looking at how would you approach this if you really trusted yourself, you really believed in yourself, and you start having answers, and you start making little shifts in your daily life. Now we're going to the strategy, and I would like to talk a bit about the strategy. And of course, it's totally up to you how you want to use them, right? So one of the strategies that I have tried myself, and I have also seen my clients trying out in so many ways, is that whenever we are thinking about transitioning, we tend to think about it in the times when things are difficult, in the times when we are really pissed with things. We really don't want to be doing that report that we believe no one reads. We really are pissed that we can't really make the impact that we're wanting, even though we really wanted to help thousands of people, change people's life in systematic ways, making their life easier and better and solve some of their problems long term, right? And whenever we feel like we're not really doing that, then we really feel like, okay, I need to find something else, right? I need to go for something else. And in those moments, it's so easy for us to go for the escape. And now I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing it. And I'm actually recognizing that some of us may be in this burnout state, right? And maybe in the very traumatized state that we really feel like we need to get out of there. If that's the case, absolutely, you are in charge and you decide what's best for you. But I also have seen that that type of escape route does not tend to work well. And here are the reasons why. Because whenever we are escaping, we're really not wanting to deal with what's happening currently and why we are in the situation where we are, and not really make powerful decisions for ourselves, but rather just getting rid of things. Rather, like, as soon as I'm out of here, then everything will be great, everything will be amazing. But that's not the case, because life seems to always create the challenges for us that we haven't really processed through. And whenever we haven't really processed through and we haven't really dealt with those challenges, then no matter where we go, those challenges will continue occurring. If it's not in this setting, it will be in another setting. If we're avoiding one particular colleague of ours in our current setting and we just want to avoid to another one, there will be another similar colleague who will be with similar um, behaviors, and we always need to decide then whether we want to keep avoiding it or we decide to do something about it, right? So that's why escaping is not really a helpful strategy, if you ask me, because I have tried it. I have resigned at some point because of I was believing, because of the toxic environment, because of the colleague, because of this and this. What I have then found for myself in my experience, that I was always dodging every other situation where I could be in difficulty or where I could be facing colleagues with similar behaviors. And I was always trying to dodge. And also, I was really getting ready to compromise for any other job that was not really well suited for my abilities and capacity, but in the hope of avoiding my situation that I didn't really want to be in. That's why I started compromising and I started going for something that I didn't even really want to go, right? So that's why if you really want to transition, I would love for you to transition from a very empowered place of, excuse me, from a very empowered place of I have outgrown this or I have completed here and I have done my part, but I really feel like I can grow on these ways and I can do these impacts. So that's why I'm going for these things. I would love for you to be in that situation, in that um, state where you decide to leave because you want to, not because you have to, right? So that's why this strategy I really want to highlight so that you can have a look before making any decision. And another strategy that I have seen colleagues do a lot is um, we often want to leave the humanitarian world that I have been coaching because we feel like we are not really fulfilled, because we feel like we're not really having the passion that we're wanting. We feel like we're not really having certain feelings that we're seeking in that environment. Now, obviously, we want to be fulfilled. We want to be at peace and grounded and having this feeling of we're making the difference that we're wanting, right? So that's really important. But I really want you to, or sorry, another like reasons could be um, I'm leaving because I don't have time for myself, or I don't really have time for my loved ones, or I don't have time for my self care and all the things. But I would love for you to not use that strategy of leaving because you don't want something, but I would love for you to use this transitioning period where you're working on your mind. Also, start looking at how you could make those things happen, those balances that you're wanting. How can you make that happen within the environment where you are now? Because if you can manage to do that, if you can get your mindset to the level where you feel fully in charge of your calendar, on your time, on your energy, and what to do next, and all the things, then even if you did leave the humanitarian world, even if you went somewhere else, you would always feel like you are in charge and you know what to do and how to do. Right? So that's why I really want you to think about don't use a strategy of lack as a reason to go somewhere else, but rather create that sufficiency, create that time, create that energy for yourself, create that balance within the setting where you are. So you get so good at it. You use the challenges of the environment where you are, and then you will no longer using reasons like, oh, it's because of emergency, it's because of other people, but rather no matter what the emergency, what the other people, you have always decided how to act, who to be in that situation, how to show up, and you can do that in any others. So this is the thing that I would love for you to work with me on so that we can get you to the empowered state where you decide whether you want to leave or stay. And you do that not because you have to, but because you want to. So, my dears, I want you to have an amazing 2023, and I really want you to be starting to look at how you could apply everything of what I'm saying and how you could start making the changes that you want. And then once you are in that trusting, empowered state, then you can decide maybe I want something else, or maybe I want to stay where I am. Have an amazing start of the year. I'm so excited and thrilled to be starting this journey with you. And you want coaching? Message me for coaching. I can't wait to coach you on this topic. See you next